Let us begin with a simple question. What does it mean to be free in 2025? The technologies surrounding us suggest liberation, freedom to connect, to express, to move. Yet one must ask, to what extent are these freedoms conditioned by visibility? In truth, every gesture, every message, every digital trace one leaves behind is not merely a product of action, but a submission to a system of surveillance so pervasive it has become naturalized. We do not live in the absence of coercion. Rather, we live in a society where coercion has become internal. In 1975, I wrote Surveillor et Punir. At the time, I reflected on a design proposed by Jeremy Bentham, the Panopticon. A circular prison. Cells arranged along the perimeter. A central tower, from which the gaze may or may not fall. The brilliance of this architecture lies not in the presence of a guard, but in the uncertainty of surveillance. The prisoner behaves, regulates himself, because he cannot know if he is being watched. The effect is obedience without force. This architectural model, I argued, had become the dominant logic of modern society. Schools, factories, hospitals, offices, they replicate this structure of visibility, of normalization, of internal discipline. Now, in 2025, the Panopticon is no longer a building. It is mobile, ambient, and unrelenting. It is your phone. It is your smartwatch. It is your browser history, your biometric data, your real-time location. You live not only under the gaze, you perform for it. You curate your selfhood in anticipation of being seen. Your social media presence is not your expression, it is your dossier. You internalize the mechanisms of control so completely that no external force is required. You track your steps, your sleep, your productivity, as if freedom lay in quantification. But this visibility comes at a cost. What appears as autonomy is in fact compliance. You believe you are choosing to share, to post, to compete, to optimize. But these choices are framed within systems that reward conformity and punish opacity. We are no longer punished for transgression, we are punished for withdrawing from view. The gaze has multiplied. It is no longer vertical, from authority to subject, but lateral, horizontal. We observe one another. We confess to one another. We enforce norms upon one another. And more profoundly, we observe ourselves. If one asks how to resist, I would offer no prescriptions. Resistance cannot be formulaic. But it may begin in the recognition of these mechanisms. The very act of naming is already a rupture. To step away from compulsory visibility. To be unreadable. To value opacity. To disconnect, not for purity, but for possibility. Freedom, perhaps, begins not in visibility, but in the refusal to be fully known. You are not paranoid. You are not imagining it. You are being watched. But perhaps, now, you are also watching back. Let us push further. Because some may say, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. But this, I would suggest, is a dangerously simplistic view and a profound misunderstanding of what surveillance actually does. It does not merely protect, it shapes. It molds. It disciplines. Take for instance the Oyster card or the tap-and-go bank card. What once was a simple act, boarding a bus, taking a train, is now transformed into a data point. Each movement recorded, timestamped, and stored. The journey is no longer simply physical. It becomes visible. It becomes traceable. The same applies to vehicles. Newer cars often arrive with GPS systems and SIM cards embedded by default. You are no longer merely driving, you are transmitting. Consider also the loyalty card. On its surface, harmless. You exchange your data for discounts. But behind this simple transaction lies a much larger process, the building of a profile. Of habits. Preferences. rhythms, predictabilities. We do not simply live. We are patterned. We are rendered legible to the state, to the market, to the algorithm. Now ask, what does it mean to be legible? It means to be sorted, categorized, ranked, marketed to, managed. What is often sold as convenience is, in fact, a process of gradual submission. And yet, some will still say, but why resist? If you are good, if you are honest, what does it matter? The answer is not moral. It is ontological. Because when you are constantly observed, you no longer act from within. You begin to perform. You anticipate the gaze. You internalize its expectations. You become an actor in a drama you did not write. This is not freedom. This is conditioning. The English philosopher Thomas Hobbes once declared that humans, left unchecked, were brutish and violent. That to preserve peace, we must be governed strictly. The modern surveillance state echoes this. It assumes the worst of us. That without cameras, badges, data points, and rules, we would descend into chaos. But ask yourself, does this create better people? Or simply more obedient ones? When everything is observed, nothing is sacred. Not rest. Not solitude. Not dissent. Not even error. Imagine a world where to be unusual is to be suspect. Where being untracked is itself suspicious. Where being private is coded as dangerous. Where everything must be explained. This is not speculation. This is the reality of many. And so the question is not simply whether surveillance protects, of course, in some cases, it does. The deeper question is, what kind of people, what kind of society, are we building under the constant gaze? Are we becoming more free? Or simply more docile? There may be no escape. Not fully. To go completely unseen today requires exile. Or non-participation. And even then, someone is filming. Someone is watching. But perhaps the answer is not disappearance, but awareness. To become aware of what is happening is to shift the dynamic. It is to look back at the tower, to understand its architecture, and to ask, why must it be this way? What would it mean to build a life that is not legible to systems of control? A life that is opaque, sacred, unmonetized. A life not watched, but lived. You are being watched. But if you understand how, perhaps, just perhaps, you begin to undo the spell. You are being watched. But now, you're watching back. Leave a comment, what do you think? Is surveillance safety, or soft control? Subscribe for more on power, systems, and reclaiming your mind.